All right, I think I'm ready to make this video. We'll see. So this is about, I don't know what it's about. Let's see what it's about. It's about putting your technical report together. So now that you have your annotated bibliography done, and like I said, I'll be working on that to get that back to you this week. So whatever comments I'm putting on there, you want to think about, and fix those things up. And I won't do like a lot of comments on every one. I'll do comments, and then like if something new crops up, yeah, but if it's the same thing, you need to look through kind of all your writing for that. So I'm not going to like point out every single time. So look at kind of what I'm saying about the writing there. Work on that, because that information, like what you've done with the annotated bibliography is say, here's the research. And that is actually really the body of your paper. So think about that. Now you'll be taking in your annotated bibliography, you have all those citations and the annotations woven in. Those citations are going to go at the end. Never take an annotated bibliography and put it in a paper and put an introduction and conclusion on it and call that any kind of paper. Just don't. Teachers' heads spin. Oh my gosh, it's so horrible. So don't do it, okay? But what your annotated bibliography gives you is the informational part of your paper you need. So whatever kind of paper you're writing, it gives you that. And then the rest of it is just, what do you think? So we'll look at the structure here today. I'm going to show you, let me just get to it instead of telling all of you all of that. So when you get my comments back on the annotated bibliography, and when I'm done with them, I'll just be returning them as I do them. So watch your notices from Blackboard, and then once I'm done with everybody's, that are turned in, I'll do an announcement and just say, hey, I've finished all the annotated bibliographies I've got. So you want to look at, those comments about the writing, the citation, so that you get that right in the final, and then just ask me questions. So if you read it and you're like, I don't know, Kelly, say, hey, here you said this. What do you mean, right? So anyway, you'll know how that works. So let's take a look at what we're looking at. Okay. So one of the first places to start is, of course, with the assignment, and really, going back to when you're working in an assignment over the course of time, or a project for work or anything like that, always go back to what is your goal, right? A project for work, for example, when I worked on some reports for our accreditation things. So those will be things that maybe I'm working on over 2-3 semesters, because we're collecting data, we're looking at where we're at, we're collecting data, saying, okay, this would work, we'll fix it this way, seeing what happened. So it doesn't just happen. I mean, you don't write a paper like you do for school, for work, just like overnight generally. You spend more time. So always go back to what are the goals. With that, within school, you've got the assignment. So we'll look at this assignment. But at work, I had like this stuff from the accreditation agency and the goals, what the college had laid out, we needed to do. So I would go back every time I sat down to write on it after it had been maybe 2 or 3 months. So we'd collected information, and then it was time to put it together, and then I needed to write about that. What does that show us? I would go back and I'd look at the agency stuff. If it was, some of it was for state stuff, so I'd go look at the state stuff. I would look at a sample, from other colleges, and just to say, okay, here's where I am with this, and then I would sit down and do that. So what you want to do is always remember to go back to the assignment. Even if you think you got it in your head, it's easy to just like slide off into the sunset. So I've kind of skimmed through some of this, but really, a couple of things to draw your attention to. Reread this section. Graphics, you're supposed to use at least one table graph or chart. So, that's really going to depend. Since we've done this online migration, I know some of you wanted to interview people that, since we've done this, you haven't been able to get a hold of, do some surveys, this, that. So I know some of you were going to try to anyway. I'm going to be flexible with that because, none of us anticipated this happen. But you do need to use at least one image and think about design, how things work, that kind of thing. Putting the paper together, go back through and just reread this. Read this out loud. Hear me, okay? And because this gives you some tips on how to write your conclusion, how to write your introduction, and things like that. And then the kind of layout, front and back matter, which we'll look at here. So let me go to my outline, because I did an outline. What are we going to talk about? Okay, so what does it look like? Well, I did one of these things where it's what I always do when I've done this stuff for the college. I'm like, Google, show me a template. What does this look like? And I found this on examples.com, and I looked at it and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's kind of what it looks like. Now, before I downloaded it, I asked Google, how do I make sure something doesn't have a virus? Because when I clicked on that, it was a zip file, and I thought, man, you can put all sorts of things in a zip file. So it told me to go over and check out virustotal.com to, make sure and get that link, copy the address link, and then just put it in there. And so I did, and what virustotal.com said, hey, looks like it's okay, right? No warnings out of 76 places it checked. So I downloaded that, and here's what, and so I'm going to put a link. I'll put this whole outline in the description for this video and also in the Blackboard announcement, okay? So you can click on this, and then you'll need to unzip it. And so whenever you unzip a folder, where did I put it? I put it in temp. Oh, just right-click on it and select Extract All, and that's in Windows. I don't know what happens in Apple. Ask the internet, right? Do what I do. And I also put these here, so if you want to make sure in the future you wanted to bookmark them, just to kind of, if you're downloading something, make sure that it's not there. So this is what this looks like. Let's look at this. So it's just a sample report, and one of the things you can do is you can go in and decide, what's your title, right? Introduction, you can do that. Read through this. This is actually pretty well done. And so, or it is well done, and I think it's a great example. So what I would do if I were being a student, what I've done, again, when I was writing things that, I took the class. I took business and technical writing, computers and writing. I took all these writing classes. But whenever I was faced with something new, on the job, like I said, I can't train you for everything you're going to write on your job. I went and found an example, and I made sure it was a good one. I really looked. I used my knowledge, my judgment, knowing writing in my field and those expectations. And I would look at it and I'd read that paragraph, or if it was a section, I'd read that section and kind of outline what are the main things it does or talks about or whatever. And then I would say, okay, cool. And then boom, delete that, write that. And so that's really what I suggest you do. But I do suggest maybe you might want to skip the introduction. Look at the instructions in the unit assignments for 2311, where I talk about kind of how to write your conclusion and how to write your introduction, because you may just kind of want to do that. Just kind of read this for that voice and that style. Read it out loud 2 or 3 times, get that feel. So actually the first thing I would do is I would go in and I would just save as. So yeah, I've got my stuff all decked out there, but yeah, save as, and then you can put it wherever you're going to save it, and that way you're saving a copy, recommendation report, mine, whatever. You're saving a copy. You have that original there if you want to go back to it. So your introduction does what any introduction does. It gets people into this thing. Now, you're imagining, what you have to do is think about, who is this for? So I'm going to use Caitlin, your example, where you're thinking about, what kinds of things, strategies can preschool teachers and parents, young kid teachers do to help kids like remember stuff like their jacket. These are really practical things. So, think about who is this for, right? And so how would you write to them? And this is a place where, in general, most college papers, you're told don't use I, me, my, you, your. In this case, you can either go with the we, the royal we, we recommend doing this or we recommend doing that. Or if it's like more personal, like Crystal, I'm looking at you in the classroom. Lopez, Russell, okay. For yours, looking at NMSU plus UTEP, you can talk about, as students, at El Paso Community College, if we're going to go on beyond an associate's, we have a choice. And so you can really talk really kind of to yourself and to other students who are in that situation. I'm trying to come up with other ones and I can't, and I don't want to belabor too long. Amy, whenever you're faced with, when you realize you have diabetes or you're pre-diabetic, you have a lot of choices to make. So you can talk to the you because you're talking to a certain group, right? In other papers, you don't want to do that. But here, you're writing something for specific people. So just keep your specific people in mind, though. Don't use that you willy-nilly, right? Think about who you're writing to. And it can be kind of conversational. And you want to think about, what is it in that introduction? What is the problem that this would address? Or if you're looking at feasibility, I don't think everybody's doing recommendation, but, you know, I forget. So anyway, if you're looking at, is this feasible or not, and even if you were looking for yourself, I'm going to look at, do I put solar on my house? I would say, in looking at whether it fits into my budget to put solar panels on my house or not, there were a number of things I needed to think about. Or, I've always pictured myself as a, very environmentally friendly, you know, sort of gal who is definitely interested in saving money. So thinking about whether solar panels would fit into my budget and be worth it is something I wanted to do. So, like in that case, I'm really writing that feasibility for me. For the other ones, and what most of y'all are doing is saying, how is this feasible for some group? So think about who your group is. You want to, in that introduction, think about who it's for, what's the issue, what kind of problems does it present, um, you know, how can knowing the answer help? So just that kind of thing. And then you'll see, read through this, and you'll see this is kind of conversational. Like other schools across the nation, Beech Grove Intermediate Schools experience a serious problem with attendance. This has been cited as a problem, so it has that formal sound, but it's not overly formal at all. The methodology, methodology just talks about what did they do. They surveyed teachers. Um, we received completed questionnaires. We also searched Scholarly databases. These articles outline several solutions. So if you did talk to somebody, right, you're going to use an interview. So you can say, interviewed, this person or that person, Miss McGill, who's been teaching or working in schools for how many years, whatever it is. Talk to your friend, right? Ms. or Mr. Okay, who went to UTEP and NMSU, so whatever it is, Amy, one of the things you can do in yours is you can definitely say, having been a nurse for however many years, right? If you have something that applies there, right? So, methodology in this case could be, it's going to be your research or annotated bibliography stuff. And so you can use like a lot of the wording from theirs. Don't just copy it verbatim, read it and then delete it and then, write it out yourself. Okay. If you talked to anybody, that's an interview. And then since we're kind of, our migration has messed things up, in terms of personal experience, I'm going to let you kind of go a little further and say, and this also relies on, the writers, the authors, my personal experience with blah, 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 right? Or having been a nurse or been a student or whatever, okay? And then the next part would be your review of literature. And this is a review of recently published literature. Well, that's what your annotated bibliography was, right? And so notice here, causes for absenteeism, because this is about absentee. See, notice they've got Doherty, Stupin, Ford and Stupin here. They're citing, and so they kind of looked at this causes, effective policies in parental contact, community involvement. So think about teacher-student relationships. What they did was they read, and you'll see that things get used. The same thing. Here's that Ford and Stupin article again. So stop and think about in your annotations, what are the different kinds of, and so there you can see there's different, what do you call them? Subheadings, right? So different subtopics. So think about in your research, kind of what are the main points you want to bring out of that. So, 1, 2, 3, you might have like 4 or 5. You might have just like kind of maybe 3, 2 or 3, something like that. And then go in and write a paragraph or two. And notice, like when you look over here, you can see this is a well-developed paragraph. And these are single spaced. So write a paragraph or two of, talking about, what did these different researchers say about that? And of course, sometimes you may have one subtopic that maybe you only had one article or thing that's really about it. But think about if you have, different stuff on one of the headings, like you know, with reading. I think, Griselda, that you're doing the encouraging reading. I'm forgotten. So frightened right now. But anyway, I'm trying. But encouraging reading of so you would talk about, probably access to books. And I'm just imagining you're the experts on your field now, right? Because you've read all these articles. But access to books, seeing role models, seeing other people read, that kind of stuff. So you can kind of look through those and say, oh, here's some stuff about this in this article, that article, and put that together, write about it. And so again, this gives you good, all of our authors agreed that absenteeism has negative consequences for students, schools, and society. Look at that, boom, beautiful topic sentence. In the article, boom, and they treat that article title right. Ford and Stupin discuss the effects on students, they say, and so here we have that, look, author, date, location, that APA citation. Doherty agrees that, with that. What happens, what do they say? So you can see this is just really kind of summing that up using those quotes. So you can also look to what you've already written. And then at the very end, they kind of say, okay, overall, here's what the literature indicated that these things are the most important things. Okay. And so really you're kind of doing, you can think about kind of taking your annotated bibliography and kind of just taking those annotations, just deciding on the different kind of parts, and then boom, putting them together. And for some of you, it may be that it's not so much subheadings. You may actually have where you talk about your different authors, kind of like you did in your annotated bibliography. So don't assume that there's only one way to do this, because I haven't read all of your sources, and I'm giving you the kind of most common ways, and you've got to go with kind of how do you see this paper. You're going to turn in that draft. I'm going to give you feedback. So if you try something different, don't worry. Think through it. Does this make logical sense for a reader, somebody to read this information? But I'll let you know if I'm like, I can see what you tried, but it didn't work. Then you can, I'll suggest here's how to fix it. Or it may be I look at him like, oh man, that was great, cool. Hadn't thought about it that way because I haven't read all the stuff. So anyway, but then the conclusion is just kind of that little bit, just a little bit of overall. And then what they go into is their primary research. And here's where you may or may not have stuff. A survey of local teachers. So if you have an interview, if you have something like that, you could, instead of primary research, maybe you might do something if you have personal experience, right? Personal and total experience. So this would just be kind of your, if you have primary stuff, if you were able to do your surveys, things like that, then definitely do that. And if you did one on Google Forms, let me just pause this real quick and pull this up. Okay, so what I pulled up here is this questionnaire where we were asking teachers, we were looking for what should we look at next for this accreditation thing we have to do, where we have to show, we're actively trying to help students get better and ourselves get better. And so this was a one question survey, but where's the, edit right there, sorry. Blank for a moment. So there's my survey, right? And one of the things I can do is go to responses, and this was obviously the test one and not the real one. But like, here's this response. So if I have this does kind of show the whole thing. But notice I can copy chart, and then check out, I can come over here, and let's say I want to put it in here, and I'm just going to paste. Now I'm going to have to do, I'm waiting. Let's see. My computer's been incredibly, insanely, anciently slow today. I don't know what its problem is. Copy chart. Oh, one of the things I think I found was that if you're doing that from Google, I think it did a lot better pasting into, I think I had to paste, last time I think I had to paste into Google Docs, because, and then I had to download it and move it over from there, which I thought was crazy because used to you didn't have to do that. But let's see, copy. Let's go over here and see if some magic happens. Okay, there we go. So I had to paste it into Google Docs and I had to copy. Now, you want to think about, how your wrap works with things. And in Google Docs, it's a little more complicated, but, click around, ask the internet. It's a lot easier just to go watch somebody's, um, video and see how that works. So, I mean, you can have it do like that was tight, that position or that wrap on the text. So do we want it top and bottom where, it would never do that? But the key thing is, and one of the things to notice is that, and let me get rid of this here, is that they have their primary, and so they say, here's what we did, right? Um, and then they're just presenting the evidence, right? So here it is, and then source, and then they kind of sum it up. They do make sure so it's figure one, so later they can say, as you can see in figure one, this or that. And so then they give some more and they sum it up, and then figure one, figure two, figure three, and so they're doing that. And of course, source is primary, so that means you did it yourself. And so that's one of the things that we're going to have to, that I'm very flexible with. If you have it, it's great, get it in there, okay? If you don't worry about it, but you might want to include like some, if you do that kind of personal experience or anecdotes where you can say, based on my experience, and give your experience, man. If I was going to do that, I'd say, based on my experience as a teacher of writing for over 20 years, with a degree in rhetoric and composition and a special focus on, tutoring and computers and writing, those kinds of things. That's what I'd make sure and set that up there. I've got a timer going off, sorry. I'd make sure and set that up there and then say, for example, blah, 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 right? And you could do that. Don't put it in there just as filler. I'd rather see your paper a little shorter than, and we're talking this is 5 pages double space, but we're actually going to talk about format here in a minute. I'd rather see your paper a little shorter than just full of filler. Ernest Hemingway says readers have a built-in bullshit detector, and we really do, right? We read it and we're like, that just, yeah, you're just trying to make that paper longer. So there we go. You're just going to have to throw these drafts at me, and then that's where, again, where most of the instruction comes from when I give you that feedback. So, that's why we do the draft before you turn in the final, so I can do that teaching just for you, for what you need. Okay. So anyway, with each of those, you see after each of these graphics, they talk about it. And that's the key thing, is you want to keep your graph, your design kind of close to that there. And then they have just a conclusion. The survey indicates, so this is the conclusion section for our research we did, right? And so here's the conclusion section for the research they read, right, the secondary, and then they give, here's our primary research, and you might change that into anecdotal, or you might skip it, okay? I'm going to be understanding with that. If you have it, get it in there. And then what is that? And then, boom, check it out. Recommendations. It is a bulleted list, right? What do we, now we've done this, what do we recommend? Do these things. And here's the key to recommendations. They need to be things to do, right? We recommend this. Notice here, they say create a clear thing, provide this, increase communication, discuss. These are things you can go do as teachers. If we were all teachers and we're working on absenteeism and trying to get students there all the time, we could do these things very specifically. So recommendations should be very specific. Now, that said, there are different ways in which we have specific recommendations. Amy, with yours, if you're looking at diet, lifestyle, something else, there were 3 and I should remember it. Diet, exercise, something. Anyway, whatever it is, you're saying it now, I can hear you. So, you may have, you may actually want to break this up into 3 parts where you would have, what's your literature about, diet, and then do you have any primary stuff or experience? What's your literature about exercise or lifestyle, primary experience? And so all the rest of y'all think about that. Would that apply that way? Because there's no like one way to write things. A lot of times it's led by your research. Anytime you use research, it really kind of dictates how you put it there. So if you have kind of like 2 or 3, like I'm thinking of Amy's, where you have, diet, you have like, I know, exercise, what things can you do if you're pre-diabetic, right? You might want to think of kind of like a little baby mini report, here's diet stuff, right? Here's the research, if you have any primary stuff, and then kind of for that, what's your conclusions? What are the recommendations? And then, lifestyle, exercise, whatever. Here's the research. What are your recommendations? So just, think about how that breaks up because that's what you want. But when you do those recommendations, you want them really clear. So not just, we need to be concerned about students being absent, or you should be very concerned about becoming diabetic. Yeah, nobody's going to be reading that unless they already are, right? So then you get in there and say, okay, do this thing, do this, do that, don't do that. This is your do's and don'ts, that kind of thing. Recommendations when it's something more subjective, and I'll go back to Crystal's on the UTEP NMSU thing, recommendations. It may be, we talked about this before, and some of you may find this applies too, if you are in this situation, right? Or if you're majoring in this, or if, so you may find you recommend one over the other for different reasons. So you might just come up with, a good reasons to really kind of think about UTEP more, good reasons to think about NMSU more. Or overall, again, I don't know your research. So, and you'll have primary because you're interviewing your friend, a couple of people there. So again, I can't tell you, but, being very clear, that kind of thing. And then the closing, look, this conclusion is really kind of just an overall sum it up. Really, that's it. Now notice this is 7 pages. Now watch, I'm going to do this. I'm saying you need 5 pages double spaced minus, now that doesn't include, you never include the space of your graphics we're still at, got a Kleenex there, 6 pages, right? And of course, you may actually, once you have your annotated bibliography, because talking about this is the review of the literature, all of this, so you actually, I really don't think you have to worry about your content there. That's one of the reasons I have you do more lengthy annotations, is really you've written a lot of the paper. It's just about putting it together and smoothing it out, okay? Now, you can go with the heading style for this. One of the things I will put in the links is the link to this AP, the Purdue Owls APA page, in terms of like how you should do headings in APA style. I'm not going to be overly particular about that, but do know that when you do APA in the future, of course, for a college paper, we wouldn't single space, but this is a report. Now, there are some other things you do need to do in here. And let me just, I don't want to see any more of the comments or anything, so let me make sure we're not doing that. Okay, one of the things, let's go back to my outline, because you have to have a cover page, you have to have a table of contents, an executive summary. Okay, let's just start with cover page. Well, boom, what did I do to get that? I said Control Enter. If you're on that Mac, Command, hold it down. Whoops, don't highlight anything. Hold it down and press Enter. So we know we're going to have cover page. We know we're going to have table of contents. You're going to have executive summary. Okay, I want to make sure my font matches because, oh man, I was going to say summary. Right now, an executive summary is a one-page summary saying overall, this is what this report says. Okay, I think I forgot where I was. I had to pause. But anyway, how to write an executive summary for your proposal. This page is really nice, okay? So and also, she points out something that I kind of forgot about, but makes sense. She talks about the executive summary, what it does. And it really is, it's like if like somebody's just going to read one page, it's like this one page of everything distilled down. What would they read? And you do want that to be compelling, right? Then they decide if they're going to read the rest of it. And so read through this because she really gives a good discussion of it. And again, I'll put the link is in the outline. She talks about, should you write the executive summary first or last? And I usually say last because I say, well, you write it and then it's just a summary. But she recommends first because she says, really, if you kind of write it, maybe you're doing basically a baby outline of your paper. So try it. See, I mean, see which way works for you. If you already kind of know, oh, I know what's in my paper, go work on that. And if you get stuck, then you might stop, read this article, and work on your executive summary. And then that'll give you ideas for those parts you're stuck on. Remember, you don't have to start writing the introduction because it's first. Start writing with what you know, and you already have your annotated bibliography, so that really might be the place to start. But anyway, at the end of this, I mean, she talks about kind of what you need to do, kind of voice, and it is more kind of the sell, the, saying, here's what this is about, and then she gives an example. Now, this one's really long. Yours should not go over one page. It should be single spaced, but it should not go over one page. But you can see, it's like, why would we, this is that boom, the opener, why would we want to, know about this? As a student at, EPCC, you may be very excited about graduating, but not sure what you're going to do next. Boom, right? As teachers or people with, parents and teachers with young children know the fight of trying to make sure they don't lose 20 hoodies in one, over the course of one winter. How do we help them remember? Reading's important for everyone, I mean, whatever it is, right? And then, really what's the kind of need and the solution. So what did you, really you can think the solution and the evidence, this would be just really summary of what you found. And then what are your overall, what is the overall recommendation? Here they're not giving the bullet points, but just saying in general, and outlines how we'll deal with it, or this, the proposal outlines in detail. It's not a proposal. At this point, you're calling it a report. This report, explains, not only why we need to do things this way, or how to make this decision, or, what to implement when you're helping this, but gives specific recommendations and solutions for that. So this may be a little bit kind of like maybe too salesy, so you might want to tone that down some. But that executive summary really is about saying, hey, I know you're thinking about reading this. Let me give you some reasons to read it. Now, you don't want to give away everything. So again, it's not repeat the whole paper. It's just what she calls it there, and what I've heard it saying other places would be like it's the back of the book, right? So when you pick up a novel or something, you're like, oh, you pick up one of these books back there, and you're like, do I want to read that? And you read that back where it gives you just a little summary of, what's in it overall. So anyway, there's that. So that's your executive summary. So you can do that, before you write, as you write, after, whatever. It should be one page though. And so really, at least you want to kind of hit most of like 3/4 of the page, but one. Your table of contents, this is easy as long as you've done this. Notice this, watch here. Introduction. Notice that right there? That's because when I click on references over here, add text, notice this is a level 2. Oh, that's the title. So that's a level 1. I want to go in and put this executive summary in there, and I still want to spell check it. Oh, it already did because it was anticipating, but I would highlight, and this is a level 1 because like this is the whole thing on its own. The report is a whole thing on its own. If I had, for example, if I had survey, if I had interview, and I had text of it, and I want to put in Appendix 1. So let's say, I have that survey, okay? And so this is add text. It's a whole thing on itself. Now, you've got to make sure your headings, so your level 1, level 2 should all look the same. And once you tell it to make that show up, then you can go in and you can do whatever. You can change things. You can make it blue, green, whatever. If you're going to use colors, think about, make sure they're readable. Don't do everything in pink, okay? So, for example, here, let me open this up. This is our example, my example text. So like here, if I have let's say that this is called Placeholder Latin, and it's used to just like give examples of text. So notice here, let's say that is maybe the title. And actually, I'm going to make it bold, and I'm going to, oh, no, I guess Control E doesn't work there. I'm going to center it. So let's say this is my title. Now, whenever I want to Okay, I got it. Under Format, Paragraph Styles, see, look, this would be a heading 1. So I'm going to apply heading 1. And I really might, you're going to want to, if you're in Google Docs or something, I'm just holding down Control and scrolling down my mouse to make it smaller so I can see, like, the spacing here is insanely large. And so I can go to Format, Paragraph Styles, and, oh wait, line spacing, and then add space before and prevent single lines. Um, I actually might want to take this down a little bit in font size, something, yeah, 20. That's pretty insane. Okay, so things like this. Of course, this whole thing, I'm going to move down to single space. So what happens here is that once you do this, so for example, I want to insert a, not table of contents, let me find, it's under insert, table of contents. Okay, right, boom, you can see there's, and look, it says number 2, right? And so it has that. Now edit lets me edit if I want to change any information, like I, want to change the number, anything like that. And then, oh, I don't want to link it, but I do want it linked. So what happens is here, you can see I highlighted that, and I told it, Format, Paragraph Styles, make it heading, heading 1, heading 2. Same thing will happen over here in my, my document here. So if I have this, there's my cover page. Here's my table of contents. I just typed that in there. So references, table of contents. Yeah, give me a table of contents. There we go. Ooh, what's it? Okay, now here's what happens sometimes. Okay, look, so contents. Okay, so I can just get rid of that because I'm going to use this instead. And cover table, table of contents. Like I don't want that in. Whoops, I don't want that in there. So I can. You can go in here and delete. Okay, here, executive summary. Well, I can show you what happened. You can do it 2 ways. See, I just deleted stuff that I don't want in there. What happened here? So let's look at page 6. So like, see, I can go in here and just delete that, right? Because that's not closing like that. I don't need. So now you can see, look, here we can see that here's the table of contents. In my table of contents, I may want to, I'm just going to look at it, right? Decide what it looks like, what I like to do with it. Do I want that centered? You know, kind of thing. And so, boom, there's my things. What happens? You can delete that stuff, but what happened? I'll show you what happened when we update the table, so it'll give us that text again. So, executive summary. Okay, here's what happened. That this got LinkedIn add text. I'm going to say do not show, and then I'm going to go ahead and put an enter there. Enter, okay, and then I'm going to highlight. Basically, it kind of got linked in with the one before, so I want that to be a level 1, right? When we look at right here, student-teacher relationships, page 6, and it would be a lot easier if I would just look at that. Right here, see, look, see that? Wild family, see, look, see the little arrow thing? What I can do is basically just highlight that and say, don't show that. I also didn't want you to make it bold, so I'm going to unbold it. But look, I can still see that little arrow there. And see, I know it's not there. In closing, and so what I did here was I just showed, you can go under view and view navigation pane. See that? That's the navigation pane. And so there's closing, and then here, what happens is, for some reason, and it just happens sometimes, if I knew how, I would tell you how. I don't know. Again, unbold, right? But then I can see it's still there, right? And then when I redo this table, so here you can see, I'll redo the table of update table. Let's do the entire one. Okay. Look, you can see all of that went away because I went in there and fixed it. So you can either delete it manually or you can go in and just highlight those parts, right? And with the appendix, if you had, say, you have an interview and you have some survey data and you want to give more of it than just the stuff you might give in there, then you could put Appendix 1, Appendix 2, Appendix 3, and then you could put in your paper like where you talk about your interview, and you just give, if you just give parts of it, you could say for full interview, see Appendix 1, go in parentheses, okay? And that way people know you want to read the whole thing, go there, right? For all the data, right? Not just this one table, see Appendix 2 or whatever. You want to give people maps of something, or extra images that aren't really informational. Do that. Now, one of the things you also need to do is use an image. So I want to talk about kind of the front of this, and I'm going to pause for a moment so I can pull up some things. I think I left off talking about images, and I really just cannot at home go through an image, edit this, and it will take forever to upload and never get to you. The point is you can put pictures in here, okay? So like here, I'm going to center this, and you want to think about how your layout works. On a title page like this, right, we can make this bigger, okay? You can put this here. I mean, if you wanted to take this and make this like the whole page like this, okay? And so, of course, then I think I would go ahead and put the text in white, right? Because it's going to show up a little bit better, okay? And then, of course, you could have, I'm just going to do this, and then do this, and go down here, and you're going to have, by, right? Have your name there, right? College, something like that, right? So there's my name and that. So then when we look at it, let me do a preview here. Watch this. You'll see that what happens is, let me make this smaller. So, I mean, there, it's that. So I might want to stretch it so that it covers the whole thing, right? If I do that, and it's not letting me see outside the lines, but if I do that, let me grab it. There we go. Now I've got it. I'm going to do this. Watch. I'm gonna take it and make it really big, and then I can. Did it work? Not quite. What I'm doing is I'm just grabbing it and I'm making it like so big, it's gonna definitely fill up. So like that's cool, right? Check this, and then I could go in and I could say format, and I can tell it align center, align middle, and we'll get that right in the middle. Now check this out. When we do the preview, look at this. Like that's really nice. Now if you printed it, it'd give it a white edge around it, right? But you can see how, that looks professional, right? And so, think about with your pictures, think about where they fit. Make sure that they apply. Don't just put them in to be pretty. Remember, your text needs to be long enough without the pictures, okay? So, be careful. You only need to use one image. I would suggest you do something on the front page. I mean, I think that looks really nice, something like that. One of the key things is when you save this, I am going to ask you, unusually, to save this as a PDF, okay? Because that way your images don't slip around or anything like that. So you're going to want to definitely look at that. And of course, I'm doing that off my quick buttons, but you can go save as. And then, of course, whenever you save, so we'll put it here. And I can tell it down here, save as PDF, okay? So then when I go looking for it, and I find it somewhere in here, in this mess of things, ABC formal recognition report, look, there we go, and check it out. See, that looks very nice. I don't know about the picture there, but I might do that, something like that. You could put in some kind of clip art, black and white stuff, or something that's like a kind of a reoccurring design. You notice I do have page numbers here. So you can do that. Be careful. Like these I kind of threw in just to show you, like think about like kind of how they fit in terms of things. Would I put those in? I probably wouldn't. I would probably just take these out. I like this enough. If I had some data, I would definitely want those charts and graphs in there. So be careful with your pictures just for the sake of pretty, other than kind of the first part. All right. Okay, let's see how I'm doing because I'm probably talking too much. I can't believe I totally didn't record all that. Okay, look, there's and a references page. Oh, well, that's easy, right? Because if we have that template, then you can just go down here, and after the closing, what am I going to press again? Control or Command Enter, and then boom, references. So anything you used in your paper, and this is going to be what? This is going to be, it's part of the paper, so it's not one, it's two, okay? So anything we used in our paper is going to be in there, and anything that is on our references page will be in our paper. And so again, you've already done your annotated bibliography. Once I get it back to you, it'll have comments on um, the citations and all that stuff. I'm just going to make sure none of this is showing up on the thing. Whoa, what happened? See? Um, okay. And since, technically your references should be in double spaced, I really would like you to go ahead and put those that way. That just makes it easier for grading. Well, you know what you could do is because see the difference between, I mean, just visually it doesn't quite work. One of the things you could do is you could go down to, say, let's say 1.5, or even, no, let's go 1.5, just readability. It just matches a little better with the whole thing. Now, one of the other things you could do if you wanted, and this is kind of crazy, and this is like advanced format, 451, right? I'm going to leave that up there. I'm highlighting everything but the title. Is you could go in here and do this in columns. So if you want to think about, like, how would this look if you were going to do columns, right? And that might be something that you might want to think about. Now, of course, your contents just got to work. If your content doesn't work, then, and here's a place where, see, like, there's recommendations. I'll make this a little bigger. I do a lot of looking at format with, whoops, not quite that much. I do a lot of looking at format by making it smaller. Come on. There we go. Oh, I don't know how that got up there, but anyway, I don't know. What I really wanted was my recommendations to start right here. So I don't know. I could play with that, see what happens. But I mean, if you want to think about it, if you want to try it out, you can do that. Just to kind of see what it's like to create a document like that, and know that in that case, I definitely wouldn't put those references on a separate page. I would, and see, those all fit on one page. If they didn't, I would kind of think about maybe taking it down to 1.5, something like that. So yeah, I mean, if you wanted to give that a try, I'm all for that, because I'm about, playing with this, and this is a place where you're going to get to kind of use some different formats. Now, I mean, I don't know, think about it. And the thing is with that is you can think about, like, kind of putting in, the other thing is you think about putting in white space, which is what I did, here, by actually just kind of making this start over there. So either way, however you want to format it, you can go either way. I guess that's really all I've got. I mean, if you want to play with the format some, then do it. And then when you turn in your draft, I'll help you with it. I gotta say, I love that picture. It's a beautiful picture. So, and it does to me. I'm like, wow, that looks so fancy and professional. Okay. So anyway, when you send me your draft, though, actually, I'll put a note on Blackboard so that when you send me your draft, I'm going to ask you to send it to me in both Word and PDF, so that I can see, what report draft. Let's see, let me edit this. So that I can see kind of, what it is you have in mind. And that way, when you save it, it'll look more like that. but then if there are things that, I can also look at the original. Okay, so and as a PDF. And that way I can look at the PDF is going to be kind of what you really kind of have in mind, that vision. And then I can also look at the original, which may open up and things may look kosher and fine, or they may not. So either way, I get to kind of see the pretty version, and then hopefully this one looks just the same. But that way I can help you with any of that there too. So let's see if I made it through my outline. References page of Appendix, one table graph, like I said, at least one image. 5 pages is double space, so you already got more than that. There's the MLA heading rules, and can you change the look? Yes, you can. So yes, you can. Okay. So, also think about other things you've seen and say, you know what, I'd like to learn how to make something with columns, or I'd like to learn how to make something like this or that. If there's something that you've seen in terms of a report or a document, and you're like, I want to make it look that way, then give it a try. Think about it, look at it, and say, ask the internet, how do I make it look this way or do this? And then do that. And then in the draft, I get to give you that feedback. In the notes, when you turn in the draft, so when you go in and you turn in your draft, you get to upload it, right? Upload your PDF, and then in those comments, that's where you can just kind of explain, I wanted to do this, or I wanted to do that, or if there's anything there that you're like, wait, let me tell you, kind of, here's what I was, that stuff you'd tell me before I took it, and you're handing it, and you're like, well, okay, but this and this and that, that's what that space is for. Okay, so let me know about any of that. And oh gosh, I wish we had a whole class period, and then you'd be bringing that draft in on the computers. And oh, I wish I won like the lottery and $1 million billion, and then I'd just set y'all all up. You'd still have to get your degree. Okay, yeah, all right. You really need a degree. Need that degree. Anyway, I'm sure there will be lots of other questions. I'm going to listen to this, and I may end up redoing it. Who knows? But I made cookies, and I can smell them. They're chocolate cookies, meringue cookies, low carb. Maybe I'll give you the recipe. It was really easy. I'll link you to it. Let's see. Look, I'll write that in there. It's like egg whites and like nothing much else. And link cookie recipe. Oh man, I can never spell recipe, man. Okay, I'm going to stop there. I hope this helps. I clearly will not be able to reuse this. This is a one-shot only. It's not like I can use this next semester video, okay? Because this is just for y'all. So that's all I got for now. Y'all take care.